Support for This News is So Gay comes from the LGBTQ Opportunity Fund of the Cleveland Foundation, leveraging philanthropy to empower LGBTQ communities. Welcome to This News is So Gay. I'm your host, Ken Schneck, editor of the Buckeye Flame, Ohio's LGBTQ newsroom. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, we again interrupt your regularly scheduled LGBTQ Reporters Roundtable to bring you a special edition of our podcast. This is Extra Extra.
Read all about it.
Extra Extra is an opportunity to hear more from the LGBTQ journalists who have helped define our field and continue to shape possibilities for LGBTQ journalists. Today's guest inspires me like you have no idea. Anna DeShawn is truly a media visionary who creates unique spaces and places for Black and Indigenous people of color, for queer and trans people of color, all of them to be heard. In 2009, Anna founded E3 Radio, an online radio station playing queer music and reporting on queer news with an intersectional lens. In 2020, Anna expanded their media reach when they co-founded the Qube, a podcast production company and curated platform to discover the best music and podcasts by BIPOC and queer and trans people of color creatives. This work has been recognized so darn widely, including an Ambie for the Queer News podcast, and Anna was inducted into the Chicago LGBTQ Hall of Fame. So well-deserved. And additionally, Anna is here with me now. Anna, thanks so much for chatting with me.
Ken, that intro, it's so surreal. Thank you. It's so good to be here.
You did all of those things. And just so you know, I left a lot out.
That's pretty incredible. I appreciate you.
Well, Chicago born was little Anna DeShawn running around Chicago saying, I want to be in radio.
Actually, I wanted to be in television. I just knew I wanted to be in media. Robin Roberts is my North Star. And I grew up a gym rat. My dad's a Hall of Fame coach. And so waking up to ESPN, going to bed to ESPN, Robin Roberts was the one person that looked like me on television that I wanted to be like. And I remember my parents put me in a journalism camp when I was younger. I was reading the announcements in high school. I'm a church kid, so I was always picked to read the scriptures. I've been the kid that's been the reader of the bunch. And not that I'm an extrovert necessarily. I do like alone time. I'm very much so a Virgo in that way. And when I get in front of a microphone, I find something to say. So, I always wanted to be in media.
I actually had a Robin Roberts section for later in our chat, but let's just go there right this second. What does Robin Roberts' journey, I would imagine her journey just means a lot to you.
It does, especially when I learned about her roots in Mississippi. My mother is from Mississippi. I grew up going to Mississippi every summer. My family is still there. And just knowing that she came from there to where she was when I was growing up, it just reminded me that I can do it too. Representation is so important. And for me, she was the representation that I needed to say that I can do it too. Now, when she came out as queer, child, that just took it over the cake, okay? Never knew if that was ever going to happen, but that was like the cherry on top. But Robin Roberts, I think her career is something to be studied, truly. To go from being such a decorated athlete to then going to broadcasting, to then going to national morning broadcasting. I mean, that's quite the trajectory. And I don't think she gets the flowers she deserves enough.
By the way, in my head, when teenage Anna DeShawn was in high school reading the morning announcements, there was a certain flair. I don't know what it was, but tell me there wasn't a certain flair to that.
I don't know. I was such an introverted kid who was so self-conscious that I don't know how it came off, but I knew I could read, Ken. And I knew I was clear. I don't know if there was any flair, but I was definitely just being me.
Was there that pivotal moment where you said, no, this is definitely my career?
Yeah, I had the opportunity in undergrad to work at a radio station in Des Moines, Iowa. I went to Drake University. And I had the opportunity to turn on Tom Joyner in the morning at this radio station. And growing up in South Side of Chicago, Black America. Okay, Tom Joyner was everything for my mother and for radio. And so getting the opportunity to turn him on, and then I was the one doing like the local weather and the local traffic on breaks. And people would call in and say, Anna, we love you being on the station. We love your voice. And I was just like, this might actually work out. I might actually be down with not being seen and being heard as the first thing that happens, especially because I do identify as a masked lesbian. You look at me, you can assume what you know to be true. And people that look like me and present as I do are not on television. They are not anchoring your morning news, your afternoon news, your late night news. Honestly, masked lesbians are barely broadcasting on sports television. So I didn't feel like there was a real good path for me where I could be myself. Now, do I think I could have done it? Yeah, but I would have had to be someone else. And so when I realized I could do radio and no one had to necessarily see me or judge who or how I present, I was like, oh, okay, very good. I grew up loving music. I played instruments my whole life, choir. And so radio music has always been something that's important to me. And so after that experience in undergrad, I was like, this is what I'm going to do.
It's such a bizarre confluence of our journeys. At one point in my professor life, outside of my journalism life, I do accreditation work. And one of the first universities I ever accredited would be Drake University. And I visited that campus. And I remember talking to folks there, and we see this across college campuses where so many of the media students are super white. Was that your experience?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the campus was white. I mean, I'm in Iowa. I walked into a situation knowing that it was a PWI, predominantly white institution. And that was intentional. One of my former basketball coaches and babysitters, honestly, she went to Drake and she told me about Drake. And then I came to learn they had such a good journalism program there. And they had Drake relays, which they covered, right? The students covered Drake relays at that time. And I was like, wait, I want to do sports. They got this huge sports event. I was like, this actually might be a great place for me. And they had a strong Black community on campus, the Coalition of Black Students, which I ended up being the president of at one point for a couple years. And I just found a home at Drake and found community at Drake. But Chile, yes, it's a predominantly white institution. I can't imagine, I don't even know the percentage of Black folks that was on that campus. But yeah, it was white, and we were learning traditional journalism, right? And so the parameters of that leave you in boxes. I mean, that's just sort of the game that is played, is that you're in a box. And I didn't fit a box. And so when I found radio and I found audio, I was like, oh, okay, I think this is my thing. I think this could really be my thing.
I want to do a little armchair psychologist. I wasn't planning on going here, but you opened the door to it. You're president of the student organization, you're on the radio, and yet you are using that word introvert that so many of us who do this work actually feel. How do you navigate being an introvert in this work?
I have to go to hide sometimes. And I truly hide. When I go outside in a public way, it's usually because of work. I'm usually doing some type of work or networking, right? Which is all part of work. But when I don't have to be outside, please, everybody, feel free to ask my wife. I am so okay being in the house, not doing anything, watching really bad television, watching sports with my dog on the couch. I find that I have to take some me time in order to recharge to go back outside. And that's really how I protect my peace out here in the world, is that I have to take me time. Sometimes I was at a conference recently, Ken, and I found like a spot where no one could find me. I wasn't staying at the host hotel, so our Verbo was like further away, and I was like, I'm not walking back there. I just need a little time to decompress, where no one's looking at me or no one's looking to talk or network, and I can just sort of be quiet and just sit in silence for a little while. And I went and found a spot. It was great.
Those journalism conferences can be brutal. I almost have to clear out my schedule for the following week because I'm so exhausted.
Oh, yeah, all these conferences. And it's not just the journalists, it's all of them. And they're just so important to the work. As an independent journalist, I have to show up and build relationships with folks who are at some of the larger outlets. I have to think about ways in which we can collaborate to extend the reach of our work. And everything is a relationship.
Yeah.
Absolutely everything. And you have to be on the minds of people in order for them to think of you, when they're thinking about a budget, when they're ideating about a potential project, you want to be on people's minds. And the only way to do that is to show up. So much of my work is just showing up.
Before we leave it too far behind, there is a question that must not go unanswered. When Anna DeShawn says that she escapes by watching bad television, what does she mean by that?
Oh my goodness, it's so bad, Ken. I don't
I'm
even know if I
excited.
want to talk about it out loud. It's the stuff with bad acting, and it's on Tubi, and it doesn't matter, and I don't have to think about it, and I don't know these actors' names, and it's supporting independent work out here. Okay, the audio might go out. The picture color correction ain't right. I just sometimes, the world is so heavy. The world is on fire. And I'm reporting about the news every week, and I am in it. And sometimes I just need to escape where my third eye is not going off, where I am not being conflicted, where I am not being asked or feeling called or moved to have to do something. Sometimes I just want something that is so bad. Okay, so
Yeah.
bad that I don't have to think. Actually, I'm laughing probably most of the time while also supporting some independent creator out here that I don't know. Yeah.
I also want to remind folks we are announcing right now that This News is So Gay and Queer News both sponsored now by Tubi. I just want to normalize that, speak it into existence.
We speak that. We receive. Who owns Tubi these days, though? I think Fox owns Tubi these days, so I don't know about that.
Again, folks, you are listening to This News is So Gay. I'm your host, Ken Schneck, editor of the Buckeye Flame, Ohio's LGBTQ plus newsroom. I am here with media visionary Anna DeShawn for our special edition Extra Extra for this week's show. At one point, Anna, you said, all right, I've worked in these other places. You tell me if I'm getting this right. I'm not seeing what our community needs, so I'm just going to damn well create it.
Yeah, 100%. So that's always been my spirit. My dad and my mom say that I was always that kid. If something didn't exist, I wanted to create it. And you know, as you get older, have you ever participated in these cohorts and they make you do these personality tests? And I've done quite a few at this point, and all of them are consistent. I want to solve problems for a large amount of people. I can't be a one-on-one person, but I'm much more interested in how we solve for the masses. And this is just how I think. And this is showed itself in how I produce the work that I produce and create. And so, yeah, I ended up in corporate after undergrad. I did my master's at Ithaca College in communications. And after 6 years in predominantly white institutions and places, I ran myself back home to Chicago. So family, you already know, if you're trying to do traditional broadcast journalism, you are typically starting in a small market. And if you're a person of color, that often means that you're in a place where you are not the majority by far. It's usually a very small market, so you can get your feet wet. People can say that you're good, and then you sort of move up. And I didn't have it in me. After 6 years, I didn't have it in me to do that work. And I ran back home to Chicago, ended up with a job at a nonprofit doing communications and doing webinars and journalism with Real Player, okay, to date myself. And then the economy crashed. So this is about 2009, 2008, the economy crashed. And so did all those jobs. And I got laid off. But I ended up with all this webinar experience. You know, this is the time the internet and broadcast were merging, even though the internet tunnels weren't big enough to hold video. And then I ended up with a job at a tech startup doing webinars and virtual events. And I stayed there for about 12 years and grew up with a whole group of people who are now my family. But while I was on that journey, to your point, Ken, I started E3 Radio because the stories of folks that I was in community with weren't being told. And LGBTQ media is white. That's just the facts. And I was like, where are the people interviewing the people that I love and care about who are, creating community for us? And so I did. It wasn't what I intended to do at first, In the beginning, E3 radio didn't even have rainbows in it. It was a white and purple radio tower. And after a while, it just couldn't be denied that everybody that came on my show was gay. Like everybody. Some things you just can't run from. And then after I realized that, I colored in the rainbow to the radio tower. And we've been going at it. It's looked a lot of different ways over X number of years, produced a lot of different shows. And today we do. We stream all queer artists all day long. We cleared out the straights a couple years ago, even Beyonce, and and I'm looking to grow that. I want us to be more intentional about the programming we have. I'm in the midst of thinking about what a strategic plan looks like and what does queer NPR look like, Ken? That's really where my head is right now.
I have to imagine that you have just gotten the most incredible feedback from listeners who feel heard. That surely is part of your journey.
100%. And you know it too, right? People, I'm sure you get the calls and the emails and the texts that say, thank you, right, for your reporting. Thank you for the work that you all are doing at the Buckeye Flame. That is what keeps me going. It reminds me, I have an older audience too. And, I'll get some mail and somebody's written me a check for $5. Okay. Because they don't trust the internet. Okay. And they'll send me a check for $5. And I know that meant something to them. Me showing up means something. And it's what keeps me going. It reminds me just how important this work is and not to take it for granted.
You use that phrase, it's what keeps you going. I think that one of the things that people might not understand about you, and I feel really confident with what's about to come out of my mouth. So let's see how this goes.
Okay.
You, my friend, are a hustler. It feels like you are, to keep these important efforts alive, you are constantly reinventing and ideating and forging these partnerships. First, is that true?
Yes.
Second, follow-up question, how do you keep that energy going? Because I will tell you, I've been following you for so many years. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. I don't know how she does all of that.
You are not alone. I will tell you, I have such a supportive family, right? That because they love me for being exactly who I am in the world, it has given me the freedom to be exactly who I am. And that is a gift. And I've always felt like it is a privilege. I also grew up with the lesson that to whom much is given, much is required. And I just been given a lot in my life. And I just feel like it is my responsibility to give it back. I also promise you can't. After seeing Hamilton, I live by the song where it feels like you're running out of time, like you're writing, like you're running out of time. I don't know. I grew up in a family that also talked about death. And I've talked to other Black folks, and I understand that this is not abnormal. So I don't feel weird talking about it loud. But we did. We talked about death. And I have always thought about what legacy means and never wanting to take the time I've got on this planet for granted. And so I do stay busy. I do hustle. I do ideate. I pivot a lot. The power is in the pivot. And I have learned so much from those who have done it before me. I think about some of Chicago's legends who started before there was social media and are still just as relevant today as they were 30 years ago because they refused to not learn. They refused to not pivot, right? They refused to not give up. And I've learned so much from them. So you right. I am always thinking about the next thing. And I am trying my best to also be present and enjoy the moment and take a breath and enjoy what I have been building. And yes, I'm always thinking about the next adventure that I'm about to embark on for sure.
You referenced this earlier. I want to talk a little bit about queer news. And certainly, this news is so gay. You helped lay the groundwork for that. And we're just so appreciative for what you put out there to the world. You referenced covering this news. I don't know if you know this, Anna, but sometimes the LGBTQ plus news is a little depressing.
You don't say.
We do say every week, as you do every day. How do you navigate that? How do you keep yourself going? And we talked about this on an episode a few weeks ago with our roundtable about self-care, and we realized the entire roundtable, nobody's taking breaks, and we're not doing great at self-care. And so I'm hoping that Anna DeShawn has the answer to LGBTQ journalism self-care. Go.
No, I have nothing for you. No, seriously, I do self care. I have a prayer and meditation corner that I absolutely live by that helps to ground me in this work. And I do believe in monitoring my consumption. So, yes, I am doing Queer News, the podcast, every Monday. I am not doing the news every moment of every day. Am I staying informed? Absolutely. It is my job. Also, it's my desire. I want to know what's going on in the world. And it can be a lot. The echo chamber that exists in social media is very real and it's very powerful. And I too, I intentionally take breaks from certain platforms just so I can breathe and think because it is a lot. I also am intentional about curating the stories that we share on Queer News. Let's be clear. The news politically is hella depressing. The world is on fire right now as it pertains to LGBTQ folks and their rights. And culture and entertainment is still winning. Culture and entertainment is always 20 years ahead of politics. And those stories give me so much hope. We just had Tramiel become the first Black gay man, right, to win an Emmy for Best Supporting Actor. I mean, there are good things always happening in the midst of the world and society we're in today. And so that intentional curation of good queer news stories in the midst of everything else also gives me hope in this work because it's not all bad. There are people who are fighting back across the country. Denver public schools, I just reported about them on Monday, is fighting back against the trans bathroom ban. They are saying, I don't care, Trump, if you decide to cut our federal funding. We are not going to institute trans bathroom bans in Denver public schools. Those types of wins or moments where people are fighting back are just so important to share because otherwise it'll feel as though we aren't doing anything when in fact we are all in our own ways all across the country every single day.
Well, let's finish with some advice. What words of wisdom do you have for that little masked lesbian who's reading the announcements in her high school and thinking, yeah, there's no way I could make this work for my career?
You can, and you just got to find what you're called to do. I tell people all the time, I am absolutely doing what I'm called to do. When I quit corporate 4 years ago, I had no idea the roller coaster ride, and I do mean roller coaster. Okay, as high as I have been is as low as I have been. And it has been a ride that I would not trade for the world. Truly, it has been an amazing 4 years since quitting corporate. And so if you're out there and you're unsure, I say tap into what you're supposed to be doing. I think we're all here to be doing something. I cannot draw. I can't paint, not for real, but someone has that gift, right? I'm an okay writer, but there are some people who are brilliant writers. I don't have any children, but there is somebody out there raising kids, right? We all are here to do something during the time we're here. And if we just tap into it, then we will survive. We'll be able to get it through all of this together as a community because everybody will be using their gifts that they've been given, right? And trusting that all is going to be taken care of because you are doing the work in which you're supposed to be doing. So I'd say find what you love to do and do it unapologetically.
Well, where can our listeners go, Anna DeShawn, to witness all of your incredible gifts?
Oh, you can follow me anywhere on social media at Anna DeShawn. You can also tap into the Queer News podcast powered by E3 Radio, Queer News Done Right. And, follow me. You can find everything else from there.
Well, I said it before. I will say it again. I've been following you for so many years, and I am so endlessly inspired by you. And it had to have been 5 or 6 months ago. We were both on a Zoom. I don't even remember what the topic of the Zoom was. I just saw your name and thought, oh my God, Anna DeShawn's on this Zoom too. And so I then wrote you in that Zoom and I'm like, I don't even know what's going on, but I can't believe I'm in the same Zoom with you. So I love the energy that you are putting out there to the world and what you do that is such a gift. I mean, you do so many things is curate a space for voices to be heard. And we know that these are not voices that mainstream media is clamoring to get on the mic. And the way that you do it so effortlessly, but with such commitment to making sure that there is a wide array of voices behind the mic will always, always inspire me. And I'm just so appreciative for the energy you put out to the world.
Oh, Ken, thank you so much. I appreciate you because I know you're doing the same thing in Ohio. Okay. So thank you. Thank you, truly. It means a lot to me.
Again, I'm Ken Schneck, editor of the Buckeye Flame. And if you liked this episode of This News is So Gay, please share it with a friend, rate and review it on your favorite podcasting app, and subscribe so that you do not miss out on our next episode. In the meantime, read LGBTQ plus news, share the stories of LGBTQ plus reporters like Anna DeShawn, and support the work of LGBTQ plus newsrooms. Until next week, friends.